La Rocolera es presentada por Amara Café.
Hello and welcome to La Rocolera. Today for my first English show, I have an amazing friend. He is a writer and a filmmaker from Brazil. I know that's not English what he speaks, but him and I communicate in English, so that's why this is the first Rocolera in English. His first film, it's the most seen film in the history of Brazil, and it's an amazing film that the first time I saw completely blew my mind. And also, he is the creator of a show on Netflix that probably most of you have seen. And for me, it was very special. It was like a turning point in the industry because he managed to tell the story about a Latino character in Spanish for the American audience. And that was like, wow. And people actually read subtitles here in America, which they never do. So what he created was really amazing, and I'm sure you've seen Narcos. So today with us at La Rocolera, we have José Padilha from Brazil. Hey!
La Rocolera, can you translate that to English, please? Because it's
Yeah, La Rocolera will be like the Jukeboxer. You know, like...
I see what you mean.
So,
Okay.
I mean, the whole concept of La Rocolera, you know, some of my friends call me that they think that I'm a jukebox because I always know all the lyrics from the songs. So that's where that's coming from. So, you know,
Gotcha.
La Rocolera, and then this show, it's about music. So that's why I...
Self-referential. Because you are an actress, you know, and all actresses have a self-referential thing, you know. Well, you're going to name the show after whom? After myself, of course.
Of
right?
course. Of course.
That's what I would do too, yeah.
Well, you know, someone has to do it. So yes. This is it.
Here we are.
Here we are. So as we spoke about this show, it's about music, about 6 songs that somehow have shaped your life or have been part of your life in an important or special way. So it's about music, but it's also about memories, about stories, about things that bring you to your memory when you listen to those songs. So, without further ado, let's just listen to the José's first song. It says like this. Okay, Norwegian Wood by the Beatles. Tell me about it.
Well, that's because that's the very first album I got in my life. And obviously, given my my age, it was a vinyl album, and it's from the Beatles. It's called The Rubber Soul. And I remember particularly because it took me a lot of crying to convince my mother to buy me that, because I was a kid. And I was like, I don't know, 7 years old or 5 years old, and I wouldn't go to the cab, and like, you gotta get me this album, and why? Why do you want this? And I had no particular reason. I just dug the cover, and I have heard the Beatles before, so I wanted that album. Also, I knew that once I bought the album, they would give me the thing that I could play the album on. It's like, you know, I bought a song for my car, now you have to give me a car. Kind of. And so this album actually is a pretty amazing album that makes me remember Rio de Janeiro when I was 7, 8. It was a dictatorship, but I barely noticed it. We couldn't vote in Brazil at that time, but we won all the soccer matches. Like we had, like, you know, Pelé and.
You cannot have it all. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and yeah. So it was the very first contact that I had with music. It became an album that I heard this album so many times that even today, if you put on a song, I know what the next song will be, you know, and I know the lyrics of every single one of them. There are some famous songs in this album. I like Norwegian Wood because it's kind of funny, and it's got a good guitar uma levada, like we say in Portuguese. So this is half English, half Portuguese, because I don't know how to say levada in English, but it's got a way that Paul McCartney plays the bass, and I think George Harrison plays the guitar that I like, that is musically. So that's why I picked this one. But it could have been any one of the songs in this album. Like it starts with "Baby, You Can Drive My Car," could have been that, you know.
In My Life, it's also in that album that it's amazing.
Yeah. In My Life is awesome. So there's great songs in this album. It's one of my favorite Beatles album. I'm still a fan of the Beatles, and you know, back in the day, it was a good thing when you were a kid, because you know, the first thing you heard was the Beatles. Nowadays, without trying to be very critical, you may end up listening to what they call music that I have a hard time calling music. But you know, we were lucky this way. I was more lucky than you. You're much younger than me. But anyhow, when I was a kid, we started with the Beatles.
No, well, the Beatles was part of my life from early on. My first musical memory, it's with Stevie Wonder. My mom playing on the LP player in my house. I just called to say I love you once and again and again. So, you know, she was probably in love.
Yeah.
That's my take on that memory. She was like...
was waiting for some guy to call her up, right?
Yes. She was like, call me.
This is gonna make the call happen, yeah. Well, music is a powerful thing. Music makes stuff happen, especially for ballerinas like you.
Yes, indeed.
Anyhow, as you know, I can't, you know, I'm like a crab. I can't control my legs, so I can't really...
But you know, it's funny because you come, I mean, I know a lot, maybe some people have told you this, but we in Latin America associate Brazil with dancing. So
Right.
like in my mind, every single human being that comes from Brazil has to dance.
Yeah, well, I did come from Brazil and I don't. So there you go.
So there you go. Do not generalize people. Do not do it because it's never the case.
The thing about Brazil and Latin America is a funny thing because, you know, Brazil is basically nowhere land. It's like a Norwegian woods, the house that isn't there. Like we don't belong. We are in the South America, but we are not Latinos in a way. We don't speak the same language. It's a very interesting thing. We think ourselves as being separate, like kind of alone in this big country. There's Portugal, but it's tiny and
far away.
Far away, yeah. But you know, we have very good music.
Yes.
Which leads us to what? The second song?
The second song. But it goes like this. Let's listen. Sabia by Tom Jobim. And this song was written by Chico Buarque, which I love. And I learned that Sabia, it's the national bird of Brazil.
The lyrics is by Chico Buarque, the composition, you know, the harmony and the melody is by Tom Jobim. And, you know, Sabia is a bird that has a very beautiful, it sings in a very beautiful way. Actually, in the beginning of this album, the song starts with the Sabia. So if you rewind it from the top, you listen to the way the Sabia sings in the song itself. Mm-hmm. Now, I happen to be almost a neighbor of Tom Jobim, who I think is, you know, if you ask me the three top composers for me, not excluding classical music, I would say Cole Porter, Tom Jobim, and Ira Gershwin in the pop songs that they did, George and Ira. And so, you know, I lived right next to Tom Jobim, and we went to this place in Rio that's very beautiful called the Botanical Garden. Mm-hmm. You know, I don't know if you know a little bit of the history of Brazil, but Brazil was basically created because the king of Portugal was a coward, So when Napoleon threatened to invade Portugal, he just moved everybody and himself to Brazil and just created he created a park there called the Botanical Garden in Rio, which has plants from all over the world. Like the Portuguese went on boats and collected. It's the one park in the world that has most species of plants from everywhere, from Venezuela, from India, from whatever place you want. And there are little, you can see in the trees where they came from and stuff. And I used to go to this park, and this park is full of sabiás. And Tom Jobim went to this park too. And I think it's, he loves birds. And he composed this song. It's very beautiful too, because the lyrics says, it's about a guy that's out of his country. And he's singing, I'm going back to my country. I'm going back to, where the sabia sings to. And the harmony, and some of the songs, I chose them for the sake of music itself, and the harmony that was, starting to take over Brazilian music back then, early 60s, was as complex as, if sometimes even more than jazz. And so when I started to listen to Tom Jobim, and this was like when I was, 16, 15, then I started to understand, what music really is, like what I call music. Complex pop music, which you find in Brazil, you also find in Cuba and in some places, not many places, but some places you do find in America, and this is a particularly beautiful one. So
I love Tom Jobim. My favorite album of his, it's the one he did with
Elis Regina.
With Elis Regina. I'm
a mind reader, you see.
It's one of the most amazing and beautiful things I have ever heard in my life. And now that you said about the complexity of the harmonies, when I heard this song for the first time, the introduction reminded me of Stravinsky, The Rite of Spring.
Yeah.
This sound, the flute that it plays, and it's like if it were the bird.
Yeah, the flute,
we're getting all this,
the bird, yeah.
like nature sounds. It's amazing because it's not intended as to sound like nature, but the way he wrote the music, it's so beautiful. It's like it's taking you to a forest. So I was really impressed. I agreed with you. It's very complex
song.
Powerful.
Tom Jobim he's a maestro, right?
Absolutely.
Not only a composer, but he has a classical formation, but he was very lazy. So he just sat down there in his piano and drank some whiskey. And a lot of Brazilian, important musicians say that, he would have composed incredible classical music. But it was just like, I make this song.
He was like, he wanted to enjoy life and be like,
He was very good looking too, so he got all the girls with the songs. Like, it was kind of hard to beat.
You cannot blame him. It's the way it is. Actually, the video, one of the videos from the album of Tom and Elis, it's him and the piano and she singing by it, and they are clearly like a little bit drunk.
Right, yeah.
They're singing and they laugh, and I was like, I want to be there. I want to be part of that party,
Yeah, there was a famous poet in Brazil that did a lot of the lyrics for Tom Jobim, Vinicius de Moraes.
Mm-hmm. I love him.
Yeah, and Vinicius said that whiskey is the bottle dog. It's the best friend of men. It's a dog that comes, it's a crazy poet thing, but it's this guy's drunk a lot of whiskey.
Tell me something, because in Venezuela, people drink a lot of whiskey out of the blue. I mean, it's probably at some point.
As you know, I've been there.
Yes.
Yes. I saw it. It was before the destruction.
Yeah. Exactly.
And so I went to the fancy restaurants and people were drinking and the food was amazing. I actually love Caracas, and people drunk. I saw people drinking a lot of whiskey. I don't drink whiskey. I drink wine.
No, but in Brazil, do people like normally drink whiskey?
Back in that time of Tom Jobim, Vinicius de Moraes, drinking whiskey was the cool thing that the the people used to do. I think I have a song by Cole Porter. I don't have a Cole Porter song in this list. Well, I should have had, but anyhow, I stuck to the Brazilians. Yeah.
And also Tom Jobim was very good friends with Frank Sinatra, and they collaborated a lot. And actually Sinatra sang the English version of Sabia. I heard.
Really he did it. Yeah, he did it. There is a whole album, Tom Jobim and Frank Sinatra. Pat Metheny, Tom Jobim collaborated. Sting sang songs by Tom Jobim. Tom Jobim is there is this book called the Blue Book from Berkeley that has all the compositions that people are supposed to learn. And I think Tom Jobim has 7 songs in it, and he loses only to Cole Porter that has 8.
Wow. That's amazing.
So he's like a jazz master composer. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, let's listen to the third song that says.
Right.
É bom acabar com isso, não sou nenhum pajuão.
Maravilla. João Gilberto, sem compromisso. How do you say that in proper Portuguese?
João Gilberto sem compromisso.
Gracias.
Like you said.
Now that everything, well, most of the songs are in Portuguese, you're going to present them, so I don't have to be saying sem compromisso.
Yeah.
I'm going to learn Portuguese at some point, but no, today's not the day.
Yeah, but the thing about this song is if you get, this is the second leg of what became high quality Brazilian music. You had the harmony that Tom Jobim and others work with, Chico Buarque and later Caetano Veloso and Gilberto Gil. You have those complex harmonies. And then come this guy called João Gilberto with a guitar, and he figured out a way to slow down samba. So he figured out a beat in the guitar, more than one, but he figured out a beat, and then he applied that beat to the complex harmonies, to the songs that were written before him and were being written at the time, and out of that came something called Bossa Nova. And so João Gilberto is by far my favorite guitar player. If you're not very subtle with your ear, you don't understand, you listen to the whole song and you don't understand how complex the guitar is underneath it. Because it's all, sometimes the chords go before the time. So you have a beat and the chord, you play in the next chord and the other beat. If you have to pay a lot of attention to understand João Gilberto's guitar playing and maybe know a little bit of Brazilian music. But Stan Getz, a great jazz player, recorded a bunch of albums with João Gilberto here in the US. So I grew up trying to play the acoustic guitar. I never really I just start playing now. Now I'm playing really good guitar because of the pandemic. So
that's what I was going to say.
I bought a bunch of guitars and I'm playing 2 hours every day, and I'm back to what I was when I was a kid. He made me love the acoustic guitar, which is the basic, most powerful instrument in Brazilian music. This is what, Tom Jobim composes in the piano, but the guitar is the Brazilian instrument, the acoustic guitar. And João Gilberto has, this song in particular is about dancing, actually.
I read, I love it.
You came here to dance with me, now you only dance with this other guy, and when the tune changes, you still dance with him. And here am I, and there's going to be some fighting going on if, you don't change.
It doesn't stop.
Yeah. So it's about dance. Yeah, it's about, losing your girlfriend to a guy that dances a little better than you do. Which unfortunately has happened to me many times. So anyhow, so that's why this one is in it.
I discovered João Gilberto, or however you pronounce it correctly, listening to it with you, and the first song I heard was Chega de Saudade.
Yeah.
And Saudade is one of my favorite songs in Portuguese because it's such a short and beautiful word, and it means like when you're longing for someone and you want to see it right now. I mean, it has like a meaning.
Yeah.
It's this tiny word, and it's so poetic. I love it. And because of that, that was the first song that I played. I was like, oh, I want to listen to this. And then it's like an explosion of it's like, it's this music, like for me, it's like if it were like a river that takes you and then you just have to go with it and float. It's an amazing experience. And that song, it's particularly considered one of the first song of this, when the sound of Bossa Nova created.
Yeah, it was created in João Gilberto recorded an album called Amoroso. And that's when everybody listened to Bossa Nova for the first time. And he played Gershwin in it. He got a bunch of Brazilian songs, Italian songs, American songs, and he applied Bossa Nova to all of them, kind of saying to you, look at what I can do with this song. You know, I can bring it down to, I can turn it into a samba, which is, you know, the African root of Brazilian music, but I can slow the pace and make the harmony complex, harmony fit, and it's like a meditation. You know, you hear this guitar and this guy, you don't see how complex it is, but it is. Trust me. And you know.
I know.
You know.
Well, I have to say that I'm thankful because it was through you and all the music that you share with me that I now have this love for Brazilian music. Because before I was like, yeah, Brazilian music, Caetano Veloso. That was the only thing I knew because he's like the one that has gotten out the most. And then it was like, yes, but there is also João Gilberto, and there is also Gilberto Gil. And then you started like showing me, and now I'm like, oh, this is...
Yeah, if you go on YouTube and you check Caetano Veloso, you type Caetano Veloso and João Gilberto, you see a show that they're giving together.
Oh.
And in this show, they're wearing suits, because Bossa Nova players, they wear suits, like proper, you know, ties. And João Gilberto was crazy because he had a perfect pitch. So if he was playing with an orchestra, he could say, you know, the third violin on it's out of pitch and, you know, out of tune. And so he was like that. And you see, the show was in Argentina, actually. They're speaking Spanish all the time. And Caetano looks like he keeps looking at João Gilberto like he's looking at God, you know?
Like amazed.
Like João Gilberto gets a song that Caetano composed and plays, and Caetano goes like, what the heck is this? Like, you know, and João Gilberto was sort of the godfather of all these guys, you know, and he's key. And he died, he passed away last year. I missed the chance of doing a documentary on him, but I was busy doing another thing. But
well, I would say if anyone that is watching the show wants to explore Brazilian music, it's a good way to start. And just go and type on Spotify João Gilberto and go and fall in love, and then you will take
yeah.
Si ustedes están viendo la Rocolera y de pronto los ataca la nostalgia y les provoca una empanada, de esas que se comían en el cafetín del colegio, ¿se acuerdan? Les tengo la solución. Amara Café en Pasadena, California, tiene unas empanadas maravillosas que ustedes pueden mantener congeladas en el freezer y en 10 minutos las calientan y de pronto tienen empanada de carne. Sí, esta es mi favorita. También tienen de pollo y de queso y tienen guasacacas y tequeños y cachapas y arepas y tres leches. No les voy a dar más detalles, pero los invito a que los sigan en sus redes sociales, que se las voy a dejar aquí. Y también pueden hacer pedidos online a través de su página web y simplemente pasan con el carro, recogen sus empanadas y se van a su casa, ponen su musiquita, se comen su empanada. Me lo van a agradecer. Buen provecho.
Okay, that takes me to the fourth song that says, it goes.
Coisa dos homens, a fome tem que ter raiva pra interromper.
That's the introduction, the guitar.
Yeah, this guy plays, I mean, I was, you know, most of this is in English for Americans. We'll be seeing this like a guitar legend that is also in my list is Pat Metheny. And I had me and a friend, we bought a table in a famous place for shows in Rio. You could buy seats on the table, not the full table. So we bought 2 seats. the table had 4 seats. It was like front row, and João Bosco was going to play. And then we're sitting there, and Pat Metheny comes in and sits next to me.
Oh my God.
And his girlfriend. And I think not his girlfriend, Lyle Mays, who died this year, great piano player, who played with Pat. And so I watched Pat Metheny looking at João Bosco play the guitar alone and go like, what the heck is that, right? And the thing about João Bosco is it made a huge difference when I was older. It was kind of like, it's really African. And it has African roots and Spanish roots. It's like a Spanish kind of, a mix between Spanish guitar and African guitar with samba. And so it's just a different, I've never heard any guitar like this. Mm-hmm. Anyone plays like him. He's a unique guy. He didn't create a movement like João Gilberto because you can't. Like if you do it like that, you're him. It's kind of like Miles Davis. If you play like Miles Davis, then you're Miles Davis.
Totally. Yeah. It's very special. He's playing. Well, actually, that song starts with a guitar solo. I don't know if it's an improvisation or not, but it's mind blowing.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I don't play guitar, but what I can feel is that what he does, as you said, it's completely unique, and he has something that it's very personal. You can just listen to it.
Yeah, and on top of that, all the lyrics are written by Aldir Blanc, who is a famous Brazilian poet. And I'm going to say something that will sound like heresy to Americans. I'm a complete, total fan of Bob Dylan, as you know. I gave you a Bob Dylan book, this thick, so I could convert you to Bob Dylan, right? But which I don't know if I did, but maybe I did. You tell me later. But Aldir Blanc's lyrics are just more poetic and better than Bob Dylan lyrics. It's just that it's in Portuguese, so people don't get it. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't get translated because we are like our own island.
And it's insane because I felt, my Portuguese is very basic, and I tried to read through it, and then I tried to find a translation on Google, but there was not. I was like, I need to know what this says, because for me it felt like epic,
It's so many. It's actually this particular song. It's called Genesis. It refers to all the gods, the African gods that the African tribes used and named and mixed with the Christian saints. And so it talks about Ubanda. It talks about I don't even know, because it's only Brazil that has Ubanda. But it's like the slaves. Mm-hmm. They weren't allowed to have their own religion. So they basically started to give, Catholic saints, they start to say, well, this Catholic saint, when we say his name, we really mean that other guy, And then we can pray all day long, like they fool the Portuguese.
I love it. Very clever.
Yeah, it was genius, yeah. And so he's singing all the names, and it's about this. His poetry is... it's very, very carioca from Rio, but also very deep, like about violence. He's a socialist and a brilliant guy. So I from my early 20s, I only listened to these guys, but João Bosco and Aldir Blanc.
What I love about João Bosco in particular, it's that also his style, it's very, within his repertoire, he has a lot of different styles. He does a lot of jazz, but he also plays, there is one bolero that I love.
Yeah.
Dois pra lá, dois pra cá, that it's like two to the left, two to the right. And it's also about dancing. So what I like about him is that within an album, you can find 4 or 5 different styles of music.
Yeah.
So
and I have a João Bosco Venezuelan story, which is kind of funny.
okay.
I was shooting this documentary in Venezuela, but I also had to interview all these anthropologists in other countries. And then I came to New York to interview an anthropologist, and I stayed in a hotel close to the Blue Note. So I woke up in the morning with Lula, who was my DP, always been my DP in all the movies that I've done. And we went for breakfast. And this woman was there, and she kept staring at me, and I knew she was Brazilian. And finally she came and she said, would you stay here for a second? Because I want to bring somebody who loves Bus 174, Ônibus 174, a documentary you did. He did a song for this documentary. And João Bosco, I didn't know it was João Bosco, but she brought João Bosco down to me.
Oh my God.
And he sat in the table, and I think he wanted to kill her because he had given a show of the Blue Notes. And he went to bed like at 4 a.m. I woke up at like 7 a.m. to go for breakfast, to go shooting, and she dragged him and put him on the table on the hotel in front of me, and he kept looking at me. He couldn't say a thing. He was like, "Can I go back to my bedroom, please?" So yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, I have this.
It was like, okay, I get it. It's 7 a.m. Leave me alone.
I said, dude, my favorite guitar player after, like, is sitting here. He was dragged here by his wife. I'm so glad this happened. Now you can go back to bed, man. I'm glad you like my documentary.
That's so cool. It's amazing. Okay, let's listen to the 5th song.
Não importa, não faz mal. Você ainda pensa e é melhor do que nada. Tudo.
Milton Nascimento. How do you pronounce the name of the song?
Clube da Esquina. Tudo que você podia ser, which means everything you could be.
I love that song. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, Milton is a completely different. So what we have been talking about so far, music-wise, is real, right? Like Vinicius de Moraes used to say that São Paulo is the El Túmulo de Samba. It's where samba goes to die, right? São Paulo.
La tumba de la samba.
Yeah. Music, like real good samba and bossa nova and complex harmony, but it's from Rio, right? We have this thing with São Paulo. But everything we have heard so far that's, Brazilian, other than the rubber soul from the Beatles, has been originated in Rio, right? But there is a part of Brazilian music that comes from Minas Gerais, which has Milton Nascimento in it. Milton Nascimento, Toninho Horta, many amazing, very complex harmonies, but it's not bossa nova. And it's not the same thing as Tom Jobim, and it's not the same style of chords. It's a different way to play the guitar. And the way it was born is very interesting because these guys all lived in a tiny little city in Minas, and they started listening to the Beatles. And they mixed the Beatles with the local tiny little bands. I think in Venezuela, you also had city bands.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, and they mixed the music, and they came up with something very complex. They thought they were playing like the Beatles. So they put this album out, Clube da Esquina, and it was like revolutionary because people we never heard this before.
I love it. What's a great story.
And people went crazy. And Milton Nascimento has one of the most beautiful voices, actually a friend of mine. He's one of the most beautiful voices ever. And he, Pat Metheny loves him, and they did things together. Here's a funny thing, like Pat Metheny loves him. Miles Davis hates him, but he creates a reaction.
You either love it or hate it. But...
Yeah, well, if Miles Davis, if one day I play a guitar and Miles Davis were alive and he said he hated me, I'll be so happy. Miles Davis has an opinion about me,
He thought about me. He actually listened to me.
Yeah, exactly.
I can die in peace.
Yeah. So anyhow, I thought that I should add some of Milton. I listened to a lot of that. This is it was my travel music when I used to go from Rio to surfing trips and stuff like that, and we would play this. It's like it's just they actually sing about traveling because they are kind of hippies. So it's like Beatles meet hippies, meet local bands, and you have, it's one of those crazy things that happen, right? And in music, in a very localized spot, that they don't even know they are being revolutionary. They don't even know what they're doing, and then they come out and you listen to this, and you know.
But isn't it amazing what you were saying at the beginning of the show, how the Beatles have influenced so many musicians around the world? I mean, not only me or anyone who it's just a member of the audience. Like they made people, musicians, create things. It's just, for me, it's always going to be amazing what those four people accomplished.
Yeah, I was in the pandemic. I decided to buy a guitar, right? So I couldn't go anywhere. So I started searching on the internet.
Okay.
And I found this Spanish guitar in this little store in Sonoma.
Okay.
And the guitar had been there from the 1990s, and nobody had ever bought it. And it was had a luthier called Antonio Morales that did it, who I Googled, and I saw that it was Paco de Lucia's luthier.
Oh my God.
And Paul McCartney played with his guitars. And it was selling for like $800. So I go like, I want it. So I bought the guitar. They sent it to me. I received the guitar, and the action of the guitar, like the strings were too far away from the fretboard. Mm-hmm. So it was very hard to play, and that's why I hadn't sold. So I sent to a local luthier here to fix. The guy calls me back and says, I want to buy this from you. I'll pay you $5,000. I go like, just send me my guitar back. So now I have a guitar so even the Spanish guitar luthiers, top notch, like had, to do with the Beatles were everywhere, man.
Yeah. And there's still, I feel like I play the Beatles for my son, who is 9 years old, Martin, and he loves it. So it's been like 4 generations already, or 5, of people connected to that music, and it's just something that it doesn't stop amazing me what they did, what they created.
Yeah, you should check out the documentary Ron Howard did on the early work of the Beatles. It's on Netflix.
I think I've seen it. It's the how the Beatles changed the world. No.
It's just the beginning of them. You see them on trains going back and forth and composing on spot, and then John Lennon shows up with help for the first time. It's kind of crazy, but you see how brilliant they are, because they compose all the songs, the ones that nobody ever forgot. Like as they were driving through America, like we gotta make a new song, like crazy. John Lennon and Paul McCartney together, and then there is this Scorsese documentary on
George Harrison. I love that documentary.
Beautiful, yeah.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, Ringo Starr is important, but
no, I mean, I also identify a lot with George Harrison because of his love for meditation, which I know you identify too, because you taught me how to meditate. So
I'm still trying to learn those. So don't.
Well, I mean, you taught me how to start meditating. I haven't mastered it or anything. I just practice it. Yeah. That takes me to the 6th and final song.
Right.
Okay.
Right. That's Pat Metheny, right? So if you get out of Brazil, then you ask me, what's the best guitar player you ever heard in your life? And it would be Pat Metheny. And I've seen, Joe Pass play live. Joe Pass is a genius. I love him. In Rio, he played. I was there. Back in the day, everybody went to Rio. I saw Miles Davis in Rio. And Pat Metheny, he started to date Sonia Braga.
Oh, wow.
And, the actress.
Of course.
Yeah, and he started to go to Rio all the time. And so he would go to this place called Late Night Jazz Club or something like that. And have a little tiny stage. And he would play there.
Wow.
And so once I found out, I saw Pat Metheny live about, 10 times. We also had this thing called Free Jazz, where Pat Metheny also came to, and that was with the whole group. And so, Pat Metheny, it's just my favorite guitar player. it's fusion, but it's also jazz. If you know, he plays with Ornette Coleman. He plays. He's all over the place. He plays with Milton Nascimento, Antoninho Horta, the people from Minas Gerais in Brazil, and it's just there is something. He's connected to Brazilian music. Some of his songs are connected to Brazilian music, and he used to play with Naná Vasconcelos, who is a percussionist from Brazil, who would do the voice in the songs, because not lyrics, but voice, like, you know, la 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 kind of stuff, but better. And then he replaced.
Thank you.
Yeah, but then Naná went to do something else, and then he brought Pedro Aznar in.
Oh.
So you see a lot of, like, if you get a song called The First Circle, which is beautiful, like I could have put any Pat Metheny song here.
Well, what I heard mostly from Pat Metheny, it's his Latin jazz. He's big on Latin jazz. So
yeah, and he has Pedro Aznar singing for him, and I know you like Pedro Aznar.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, and so maybe I should have picked up a Pedro Aznar.
No, this one's beautiful. I haven't heard it before, so I just listened to it this morning while I was just contemplating the morning, which is beautiful. And I was
this is a medley. So
it's a meditation practice to just concentrate on the, and to, for me it was like I was trying to like imagine his hands playing. I don't know if that makes sense. But it was so.
You can see that you know, if you go to Netflix and you type Unity Sessions, there is a documentary on this. You go to the very last song, and you see him playing that.
Oh, okay. And so then I won't have to imagine it.
No, you can actually see it, and he also plays "And I Love Her" by the Beatles in a jazz style, which is beautiful. And "I Love Her" is the simple song you can possibly imagine. And then all of a sudden it becomes very complicated because of the way he plays it. But you know, if you walk into my car, whomever you are, and I'm driving, you're going to be listening to Pat Metheny, whether you like it or not.
There you go. The dictatorship of Pat Metheny.
The dictatorship of the driver. You know, if I go into your car, I'll be listening to something else, you know.
Exactly. Well, we got to the point of La Rocolera where I get to play a song for you.
Right.
And this is the song.
The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind.
Well, you were wondering, right, if the book you gave me and and you trying to make me listen to Bob Dylan had worked. And it, you know, here is the proof.
Yeah, well, that's awesome.
You know, I was playing this song, and I remember that once we were having a conversation, and we were talking about music, and I said that I knew that there was like this hole I had, and it had to do with me not knowing anything about Bob Dylan. I was like, I mean, this has to be bad. And I told you that. And you were like, don't worry. I'm here to save you. Yeah. And then, as you know, I love words. I love poetry. So it was very clever. You first gave me the book of the songs. When that happened, he just recently won the Nobel Prize for his writing. So for me, it was like really beautiful to be able to first see them. And then when I started listening, it blew my mind. Now he's one of my favorite artists. I listen to him.
He's a total genius. Like, he's the one thing you can compare to the Beatles, to me. And like, you know, the Rolling Stones, they're great, but they only play one song. It's the same song over and over again.
I know.
Bob Dylan, you know, you have to watch, forget about all the documentaries and all the things I said. Go watch the Martin Scorsese documentary on Bob Dylan.
Oh, I watched it. It's amazing.
Like, there is a session on it where he's just playing with words. He gets a bunch of words and then he starts changing the order on the spot. And you go like, what the hell?
And it makes sense and it's beautiful. It's like,
And also people were booing him and he goes like, I have a take on the booing. I like it. And they buy and the places are crowded too. They buy the tickets, they come and they boo me when I play the guitar, but I don't give a shit, kind of thing.
Well, he's indeed a very particular person, an artist. Actually, he didn't go to Switzerland, to Norway to pick up the prize. He just didn't go.
No, he actually thanked the Nobel Prize committee in his website, but it wasn't him. It was his assistant.
Oh my God.
And like 5 minutes later, the thank you disappeared. He said, like, take that out.
That's ridiculous. Don't do it.
Yeah. Well, because he wrote a book. He wrote a book, a proper book, like not the music.
Not just the lyrics. Yes.
Yeah. But the lyrics are the thing. The lyrics are like it's so beautiful. It's unbelievable. So many images. Joker Man. And you say the answer is blowing in the wind. And what's blowing in the wind is COVID-19. And even this
that's the answer. We're in trouble, my friend.
Yeah, we are. No, because here's the thing. I mean, I don't know if you've been away from the news lately, but the United States of America is making Brazil look good. Venezuela, not yet, but they're getting there. They're getting there. Like, it's crazy.
It's a chaos.
Yeah, we try to escape our countries and we end up in our countries again.
We cannot run away from that. It's the way it is. You were talking about Bob Dylan, and I read that this album we were talking about at the beginning of the session. It's just like goes full circle. It was somehow inspired by the Beatles meeting Bob Dylan. Yes. And they met and they became great friends. And then John Lennon, especially, and George Harrison started like really connecting with the way Bob Dylan wrote songs. It was more real, because the first albums of the Beatles are all about love and like they're more cheerful. And then from this album on, after Bob Dylan was like a missile, he sent like a...
Well, that was the Rubber Soul.
Exactly. Yeah. So with that album, it was like the turn up on the page for the Beatles.
I'll tell you the name of an album you have to get, because Bob Dylan released an album this year.
Oh, really? I was going to the show at the Hollywood Bowl. He was playing there on the 18th of June this year. And
Rough and Rowdy Ways, and it's actually amazing. The album.
Oh, I haven't heard.
It's in the style of the last ones that he did, but the poetry is so beautiful. The lyrics, it's unbelievable. It's very political. It's beautiful. You will love it. You have to download this album
right away.
Yeah,
I will. Yeah, well, thank you so much. This is the end of the interview. I had so much fun, and thank you for showing us a bit. Like, I feel with Brazilian music, I do feel when you're an outsider, you need some guidance, because there is a lot and you don't really know where to start. And so I feel today's show somehow a guidance to people that want to start listening to Brazilian music and then know where to start with this, amazing.
Well, start with David Byrne and Caetano Veloso, because then if you are American,
that's great.
Go to the Carnegie Hall show of David Byrne, Caetano Veloso, and then you will fall in love with Brazilian music, and then you go from there,
That's good. I like that. That's a very good starting point. Thank you so much, Jose. Thank you for being here with me and sharing this stuff.
Good to see you healthy, and Claudia too, in the middle of this crazy pandemic.
I know. Stay safe.
In Brazil, we say kisses. Send my kisses to Martin.
I will. Besos. Thank you.